What's going on there, guys? Good afternoon. It's the Earthmaster here on the live stream on this Monday, August 15th, 2022 date. It's about 1 p.m. West Coast time here in California. And the latest quake looks like a 2.9 over here outside the Mediterranean Sea region. Looks like latest quake there on the globe. Let's go ahead and check out some info real quick before we get into the earthquake activity. Looking at an informational statement here from the USGS. Let me go over here to it. Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. This is in regards to the Tau Island and the Manua Islands there in the American Samoa. Looks like the informational statement here is talking about some continual earthquake activity. They believe it's volcanic. But no significant changes over the past 24 hours. Earthquake swarm in the Manua Islands of American Samoa continues, with a source most likely closer to the Tau Island in that area than the seamount right here. 5 earthquakes were reported over the last 24 hours. A microseismometer earthquake detecting device installed in the village of Tau Island yesterday is recording approximately 30 to 60 earthquakes per hour. That's a lot, folks. That's a lot of earthquake activity per hour. Most events are too small to be felt. Estimated magnitudes of the largest earthquakes, including felt events, are between looks like 2 and 3 on the magnitude scale. Again, this is around the American Samoa Tau region. Yeah, so definitely I believe this is volcanic in nature for sure. What it's going to lead to, who knows, but I know as long as we've got earthquake activity like that continuing in the region around this volcano, that is something to watch pretty closely. Let's see. Reports suggest that the earthquakes vary in intensity but are generally short, sharp jolts. The earthquakes are more likely to be felt by people indoors, at rest, and along the coast. Based on the analysis of earthquake data from the microseismometer installed yesterday on Tau Island and felt reports, the source of these earthquakes is likely closer, and we read that already, to the Tau Island. So they mentioned here, due to limited earthquake monitoring equipment, and I'm going to look and see if I can't add one of these stations around the American Samoa on the live stream here so we can watch that earthquake data coming in. The exact location of these earthquakes is currently unknown. A newly installed microseismometer in the village there on Tau Island suggests that this activity is likely occurring. We read this already. Okay, so not all earthquake swarms on volcanoes result in eruptions, but definitely a good sign, right? Current low-level earthquake activity may continue and vary in intensity for days to months without an eruption. It is possible that the swarm is an early precursor to an eventual eruption. At this time, we cannot determine which of these possibilities is more likely. A large explosive eruption similar to the Tonga eruption earlier this year is extremely unlikely. But who's to say that is, that is not likely or possible? We don't know for certain, but I think any type of swarming like that around the volcano is a good possibility of seeing an explosive eruption. Now, if it's as large as a Tonga eruption, we'll see. So we're just kind of keeping an eye on this, and we'll go from there. Looks like they mentioned the data view here from Tau Island, RS data view in the raspberryshake.org area. Sometimes I use this, sometimes I don't for data. It is a way to capture the seismic readings here. And it kind of looks like, this is the graph of the area around the American Samoa and a couple small earthquakes. I may look around here and include the Raspberry app here, Raspberry Shake app on the live stream, but we'll see how it goes. See if it's worth it. I kind of like using my other program, the Global Earthquake Explorer. I just got to see if I can integrate this data into that from a station nearby, and I might be able to, so I'll look into that here in a little bit. Okay, as far as regional activity here in the American Samoa region goes, there's not a whole lot to report, and the USGS and the EMSC is not really showing a whole lot of activity here, even over the last 7 days or so, around the Tau Island region, which sits kind of over here a little bit, and it's just not showing anything popping up here on the map. So even though we've had some 2s and 3s on the magnitude, nothing really showing up there from the catalog. All right, earthquake activity overnight. Looks like still seeing a little bit of movement. Latest quake within the area, 4.9, kind of working its way up the northern end of the Java Trench here. With that 4.9 earlier this morning. Since then, we've seen a little bit of spotty activity in the 4 range throughout the Indonesia area, including a couple deeper movement quakes around the Java Sea. 4.8 at 552 kilometers. No large-scale movement to report in here, but things definitely seem to be pushing west here in terms of that migrating pressure and earthquake activity. Last night did have another 5.4 in the Philippines area, so things still somewhat active in this region, but not quite as what we've seen yesterday. The majority of these quakes, including that 6.4 in the southeast around the Loyalty Islands region, is from last night. I believe that came in as a 6.2, so they've actually upgraded that to a 6.4, a little bit stronger shaker. One area we're still kind of watching for adjustment, considering all this large-scale activity over the past couple days here, is this area north here, around the northwestern portion of the Pacific Ring of Fire, right? The Pacific Plate. The Philippine Plate itself here on the western side has been pretty active. Not a whole lot around the Mariana Trench or the Izu Island, or the Izu Trench here. But remember, this area has seen a pretty good swarm of activity about a week or so ago. But today, looking up here, latest quake shows a 4.7 into the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. This one a little bit more shallow up towards the subduction zone itself. And got to watch this area pretty closely. It's been quiet, even the past few months. Technically, about the past year or so, it's been awfully quiet. We've seen a couple 4s and whatnot, but no large-scale movement has taken place here on the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench in quite a while. And considering all the activity we've seen around the bend in other areas of the Pacific Plates and adjacent plates, this area right here is definitely under quite a bit of strain. How much more is it going to be able to build up before an earthquake happens on here is yet to be seen. But I think we need to watch this pretty closely. Again, the latest quake of 4.7 into that region of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. Alaska area up north, a little bit of movement into the Gulf region. Looks like a 2.0 near the McCarthy area of Alaska. Very small earthquake and also very shallow, 2.8 kilometers. And some further movement up through Denali and Anchorage and through the Cook Inlet area. Not a whole lot going on along the Aleutian Trench today. Things a little spotty here. Let's see what we got in the Big Blue Pacific out in Big Island. Look at that. Only 9 earthquakes today. That's a very small number of quakes. So things kind of mellowing out there on the Big Island. Most of that activity in the Pahala region, West Coast activity. And let's see what we got here. Is this from last night? Most of it is. We did have, looks like another one, 2.5 at 27 kilometers here in Northern California, below the 27 kilometers below the surface here. And that is a subduction zone earthquake. Got the Cascadia subduction zone here, the start of it. And of course, it works its way down underneath the North American plate there. And it's kind of what we've been looking at the past couple days here. Some increasing seismic activity along this area of the Cascadia. Although on this map, most of this is from yesterday, except for that 2.5 just a little bit ago this morning. So things still kind of rocking and rolling. USGS not showing anything here across the map for the Pacific Northwest. I find that hard to believe. Bay Area, pretty quiet along this area of the plate boundary for now. Did have a 1.4 and a 2.1. 2.1's around the Pacific, a little bit further down south off the San Andreas Fault is where this other earthquake struck here today. on the creeping section, getting in on some earthquakes as usual. Sierra Nevada, not a whole lot going on. A little microquake activity around Mammoth Lakes, Long Valley supervolcano region. Up here in this section of the Antelope Valley, I know we got another Antelope Valley down south with a more highly populated region down around the Palmdale, Lancaster region, but not this specific area. I'm talking about this Antelope Valley up here, up to the north, south of Lake Tahoe. Yes, it is called the Antelope Valley as well, but not a whole lot of population density out there. Seeing a little bit of swarming activity as well within this region. Further down south, Ridgecrest filling in a little bit, a couple small microquakes, and as noted here around the Palmdale, Lancaster area, and this area of the Antelope Valley, the populated regions, only a couple small microquakes here around the San Andreas Fault, although this section does, man, it goes really close to the Lancaster and the Palmdale area. And I know they've had some earthquake activity up here in this section in the past, but the southern segment, this little segment right here, is the area that could be producing an 8.1 one day. There's a lot of buildup and strain here. Of course, an 8-pointer down here in this area of the state will be felt pretty broadly throughout the region, including up north here. But this is that little section, the southern segment, the southern branch here, that hasn't seen any sufficient activity in over 300 years. No full rupture there of that plate boundary. Salton Sea, the southern end of the San Andreas Fault, a little seismic activity down off the Brawley seismic zone, kind of an extensional fault zone here off the main plate boundary. And aside from that, though, no major stuff going on. Looks like a little explosion north of Tijuana. Quarry blast of 1.6 kicking off out there. Somewhat deep, 3.4 kilometers, so something brewing underneath the ground. Not for sure what they're exploding underneath the ground there, but hey, they showed up on the map. Alright, the rest of the country here, a little activity outside of Yellowstone, finally showing up here on the map. Looks like about 6 earthquakes being reported. And I know we got a little bit more in terms of earthquake activity than the 6, I believe. Here's the overview of Yellowstone National Park, showing that seismic activity. It's definitely a little bit more than 6. This here is the main one. It looks like around the 11 UTC time. Let's see what they got up here. Kind of a bigger looking one. There it is, 11:06 UTC time at 2.3. So that's going to be that seismic signature. And the more prominent one right there on the graph. Notice these other ones much smaller. Not as well defined. Well, they're defined. They're very localized to the station. But as far as the thickness goes, the magnitude, these are much smaller. And shows up there on the map as some smaller quakes. 1.6, 1.8, 0.7, and whatnot here in this area. But no major swarms at Yellowstone currently. Just a couple spotty earthquakes out here in Oklahoma as well. Looks like outside of the Quinton area. Getting in on a couple ones. And some further activity across the oil fields here of Oklahoma and also western Texas. Seeing some activity. Up against the Knoxville or the Appalachian Mountains here around the Knoxville region. Seen a little small earthquake in Tennessee earlier. Actually, that one's from yesterday. The Elgin, South Carolina earthquake, 1.5, was from this morning time frame. So a little activity kicking up around the eastern portion of the states, but overall, just a little bit, nothing major, just a little average earthquake activity. Puerto Rico, things kind of mellowing out here. Only 17 earthquakes or so in the swarming area. Again, this area, Puerto Rico, underneath the gun for a couple different trenches up here in the north. Got the Puerto Rico Trench and the Morotos Trop Trench area. This whole area is just kind of well, squeezing, if you will. A lot at play here in terms of plate dynamics. The Atlantic out here looks like one earthquake down here along the let's see where we got here, Mid-Atlantic Ridge, I guess, near the Ascension Fracture Zone. Looks like that was a 5.0 coming in earlier this morning. Normally these divergent boundaries here do tend to increase pressure away from this area. Of course, got to remember these two are kind of spreading apart, and that does add further strain on the opposite section here of the plates. Does tend to work that way. In this case, we should see activity kind of ramping up around the South America region potentially. Looks like the last quake was from last night there, but let's check out the EMSC model, see what we got going on. Monday. Today is Monday, man. All right. Low activity. USGS is not reporting there, it looks like, around the South America region. And as we zoom into the South America area, you can see a little bit of swarming around the Chile area and into this section of the Peru-Chile Trench. Quite a few threes kicking off there throughout the day today. All right, folks, what do we got for space weather events? Let's see if anything spectacular is going on here. Solarham.com website. Looks like we're looking at a little bit of elevated conditions here from a coronal hole that's been facing us, or is facing us. That is set to arrive, looks like August 17th. Could see a G1 class storm popping up there. In the extended forecast, notice the 18 to 24 UTC time there on the 17th of August. We'll see how that works out. Of course, all subject to change, right? Notice over here, though, we did get an M flare kicking off earlier this morning. Look at that. Things popping pretty nicely there from a sunspot. Let's see which sunspot that is that popped that off. An M2.7. Looks like this guy right here. Not a big one, but that is, man, that is kind of facing Earth right there. Not for certain if there was any CME associated with that sunspot or not, which is probably, what is that, 3078 down there that kind of popped that off? Let's see, 3078, I believe. Yeah, look at that. So a lot of mixing here. Notice the yellow, blue, yellow, orange. Whole bunch of mixing in there. Flare threat right now is only at 15% chance. It's got a beta magnetic field class. So yeah, this thing looks like it's growing pretty rapidly. And there's some other sunspots in here as well that we're watching. 3081 is definitely growing, although there's not a whole lot of closeness there with the fields. We'll just have to watch these and see how they develop throughout the days. Again, that coronal hole, this was updated the 15th, is well, it's directly facing us now. It's a pretty large one. Not far as width goes, but definitely stretches across a good portion of the sun here. And no doubt that will be amplifying the conditions here around the 17th time frame. And we could get some more, like I say, we're look at this flare threat here. We had that M flare, and then we're getting some upper C flares as well. So I think we got to watch this in terms of possibly seeing another M flare. The probability details here exist on this. I think this has been updated. Let me check here. Yeah, it looks like 3078 is what they classify as the one that's got the most likely intermixing there of the fields, and that is the one that produced the M2.7. So we'll see how that develops. Pretty good chance of a C flare, because we're already into the C flare category. But an M flare looks very likely again with this type of crackling and popping, so to speak. All right, guys, have a good day. Stay safe out there. Got a lot of smoke coming in right now to my area of Northern California from some of the fires in the Coast Range here. So kind of affecting my throat a little bit. But yeah, not good. I knew those blue sky days of summer were gonna end. I'll probably be locked into the smoke here for a little bit, just due to the upper level patterns kind of blowing some smoke right down into the Sacramento Valley from the north, and it's not good. All right, let's see here. I'm going to drop these down a little bit as far as the earthquakes go. Don't need too many up there. Should be about last 24 hours of earthquake activity on the globe here. And again, just kind of watching for some possible adjustment up around the Pearl-Kamchatka Trench. Notice we have seen some deeper movement overnight into the Fiji Islands area. Pretty deep earthquake down there. But I still think we need to watch that Kuril Kamchatka Trench, folks. So we'll see how it plays out. Have a good day, and we will catch you guys a little bit later on tonight with the update video. Peace out, everyone.